This is Stephen Kotler, and you're listening to Your Superior Self.
Hi, this is Rod Goddess, and I am rolling with Your Superior Self.
Hi, this is Dave Meltzer, and this is Your Superior Self.
Hey, this is Brant Menzwar, and you are listening to Your Superior Self.
Hi, this is Paul Selig, and this is Your Superior Self.
What's up, everybody? I'm Aubrey Marcus, and this is Your Superior Self.
What is up, beautiful people? Welcome back. I'm Trey Downs, and this is Your Superior Self. Thank you guys for hanging out. Thank you for taking the time to download this. If you haven't already, hit subscribe and leave a rating and a review. It helps me scale this. It helps me get this out to those who may need to hear it. Today on the show, I have Jake Kelfer joining. He is a motivational speaker, author, and leader. He is very motivational. He is very high energy, and I love it. We talk about a lot of the resistance in trying to get started in a career, in a business, in a startup, in motivational speaking, and how that translates into real life, and how we create our own barriers and how we can bust through them. And he also runs a NBA combine for players that need a second look, second chance at getting noticed by NBA teams and scouts. I really think that's amazing, because sometimes, especially when you get to those higher levels, all it takes is one person to doubt you. All it takes is one bad rumor, and all of a sudden your stock basically plummets. And Jake gives these players a second chance, a platform where they can come in and play the sport that they love and show these scouts what they're made of, and eliminate any doubts that the NBA teams may have had about them, or just in general, right? Like people need to prove themselves in certain situations, and this is the platform that allows them to prove themselves to the league, the NBA, the scouts, the teams, the agents, and really showcase their talents. And it's pretty amazing that Jake has put that together. And we talk about the process and how he did that. But here's a quote that I really like that Jake brings to the table.
And I look at them and I say, why were their stories so great? And it's because they told the whole truth. They told the whole story. They were willing to share the things that sucked, which is a lot of times what we think we can't do as the expert, right? Is we think we have to be all buttoned up, that we can't make a mistake. We can't say, we can't say, something that we messed up on, right? I love that. I love when people are their authentic self. And if you have a huge personality, show off that personality. And if you don't have a huge personality, own that style that you have and be the best at delivering your message through that style. Because that's how we attract the people that we want in our life anyways.
Yeah, you don't even know how hard it was for me to get over like my neurosis, the idea of what I had to be to air this podcast, like the perfection that I thought that I had to achieve to put out episodes. And you don't need any of that, really. I mean, you just need to be yourself, perfect in yourself, perfection in yourself. Because then the world doesn't need another Joe Rogan, or doesn't need another podcaster that's going to mimic someone else. They already have that. They need another Jake Kelfer, another Trey Downs, or another you. That's really what the world needs, because that's what brings us that unique personality, that individuality that no one else can mimic but yourself. And people, especially in today's age where we try to be influencers, we try to copy a lot of other people's actions, I think that ends up hurting ourselves, because we truly forget who we are and what we can actually bring to the table, the value that each individual has within inside themselves. And I think it gets lost in the idea that we have to be something totally different than what we are because of this success factor, and that this is what people did to become successful. And I'm telling you right now, like, success is not your success is not what other people have done. Your success is what you're going to do to get where you want to get. And the easiest way to get there is just accept the fact that you are who you are, and 100% be that and put that out, put that energy out into the world. Let the world come back to you in a way that is truly honoring yourself. And what I mean by that is, I definitely tried to be like other people, and I wasn't getting the results that I wanted because it wasn't true to me. It wasn't true to what my message is. And as soon as I started making the message of who I am and accepting that and just being who I am without apologizing, then I started finding my tribe. That's when I started finding people that wanted to hear my message, that appreciated the work that I was doing. And it's still hard because it's like you guess you want someone else's success. I guess that's the most simplistic answer I can give. And your success is different than that. Like, only you can realize what that success is, and only you can get there. But it's going to have to be on your own path. It's not going to be you taking someone else's tips, implementing it. It might give you a shortcut to a certain degree, but ultimately the end game is that you have to honor and love yourself and appreciate you for who you are, and just watch the development that occurs. Like, I'm totally different than what I used to be. Yeah, I mean, definitely things have helped me along the way. Other people's strategies have helped me tailor my own to what it needs to be for myself. But in the end of it, like, I'm not looking for Joe Rogan's success, because it's totally different than what I am and what my message is. My success is to help the suffering out there, the consciousness that is, and be this energy that helps everyone become more aware. And the suffering is very, very intense. I mean, it's because of the attachments that we have, and just realizing that the attachments are because of the ideas that we hold about success, that it is the answer, that it is the way, that it is going to be the happiness that we all want to achieve. But in reality, it's the journey that is the happiness, because it is the thing that makes us develop into the end result. I don't know if you get all that, but that is how I feel. I'm putting it out there. I'm owning it. That is my message. That is my energy, and I hope it helps you. But be you, honor yourself, self-love, love yourself. And before I drop this amazing conversation, follow me on Instagram at tdowns80 and check me out on the website, traydowns.com. Leave me a message. I want to hear about your path and how you're honoring yourself, how you are fully honoring your journey. I love it. So with that said, without further ado, here's my conversation with Jake Kelfer.
Hi, I'm Jake Kelfer, and this is Your Superior Self.
Jake, my man, what's going on? How are you?
Dude, I'm doing good, Trey. Pumped for this convo. Excited to light it up.
So why don't you, for those who don't know what you're up to, man, let's give us like a little bit of a background. Like, what do you got going on?
So a little bit about me and what I currently am doing. I'm a two-time author of the books Elevate Beyond and Elevate Your Network. I travel the world as a motivational speaker. I started a basketball event to help NBA draft prospects sign their first contract, which has helped over 70 guys now in 31 countries. And I'm a business coach to ambitious entrepreneurs.
Yeah, that's like it's like the combine for NBA, right? Like I think that's similar, right? Like that is what it is.
Yeah, so there's the official NBA combine that invites the top 60 to 70 prospects. And then a couple years back, I created a secondary combine to feature the next tier of guys who wanted to showcase that they belonged in the NBA or in the G League or playing professional ball overseas.
How do you even start that, man? Like, how do you even do that? How do you even like, hey man, I'm gonna start a combine up. Let's do it.
So for me, like I wanted to be a sports agent. That was what I wanted to do, because when the dream of me as a 5'8" Jewish guy from the suburbs couldn't make it to the NBA, the next most logical step was to be a sports agent. And so I went to school at the University of Southern California, studied sports and business, wanted to be an agent. And it ended up where I had worked for the Lakers after I graduated. I'd written a book, but I wanted to find a way to get back into sports and still pursue that sports agent route. But the only problem is breaking into the sports agency route was tough because all the agencies that I had been talking to, they weren't looking for someone unless you had connections. It wasn't working the way I had envisioned. Mm-hmm. And I knew I needed to get creative here. And so I thought, what if we could run a secondary combine where I could invite a lot of players, but really I could get to know a ton of different agents because the agents would be the ones sending their players. And I could get to know all of the NBA executives and scouts. And I can get to know all of the national basketball media outlets. And I figured, okay, at 24 years old, if I could do that, then I would have a chance to be one of the youngest people with one of the most robust networks at the highest level of basketball. Then I could see which agency I liked working with the most, and maybe then jump onto a team from there. And so that was the initial idea behind this, stemming from also the fact that I genuinely wanted to be an agent to help players. And this event was an opportunity to help 24 guys at one time, which was a really cool thing for me to be able to do. So that's kind of how I had the idea for it, and kind of why we wanted to get it going.
That's crazy. So you're still doing that, right?
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately with everything that's gone on in 2020, we weren't able to host the event this year. So we kind of did a virtual honorees where we've announced our honorees, attendees from afar, as guys that we would have potentially selected. So that's been fun, but yeah, we weren't able to do it this year, unfortunately.
But you plan on when everything clears up, you guys plan on going forward, right? Like you guys are going to continue to do it.
That's the plan. That's the plan.
Awesome,
unless
man.
anything changes, man. That's the plan. It's too much fun.
That's awesome, man. I love that. Giving those guys, the underdogs, a chance to go out and shine, man. Like I'm sure you meet some like ridiculous talent.
Yeah. I mean, the talent is unbelievable. And it's interesting because the types of guys that we get sometimes are top 50 recruits out of high school who just don't have the college career that they were expected to. And then they fall right outside the cracks and we invite them to our event. Other guys are guys that went to these top programs, but only played 5 or 6 minutes because they're playing next to lottery picks, right? They're playing next to Zion Williamson, John Morant, like guys that are having huge careers already. And so they're like, well, I'm still that good. I just need to be seen a little bit more.
Yeah.
But we have guys from mid-major schools or schools that aren't as recognizable, but they're dominating. But yet people say like, well, they probably won't translate at the NBA level. And so we say, well, come on over. We're going to see how good you really are. And so it's really cool to be able to see the different talent level from all across the world, and see where guys can step up and what the differentiation factors are between some of these guys that catapult them into the draft conversation.
Have you guys what was the biggest surprise? Like who's the biggest Cinderella story that you guys had so far?
So one of the stories that I'll talk about, and it's most relevant because he's on the Heat this year, is Kendrick Nunn. Kendrick Nunn is a guy that went to Illinois, had a great career to start, ended up having some trouble, ends up transferring to another school called Oakland. At that school, he averages about 26 a game. And I see this and I'm like, this is a guy we want, a redemption story. We want to give him another chance. He's dominating. Like this guy's got talent, but he wasn't on all the draft boards. He wasn't on everything. We invite him to our event. He attends our event. He ends up going into the G League for a year. And then this season, he ends up being second in the NBA Rookie of the Year rankings above Zion Williamson and plays in the NBA Finals for the Miami Heat against the Los Angeles Lakers. So that was like an incredible story of a guy who came through and we really helped him catapult and gave him another platform for him to continue to level up.
That's an amazing story, man. Like to be even close to that, to see where he came from. And I mean, that's just an amazing story. I love that. I just love underdog stories. I love the Cinderella stories. Talk about the first combine that you hosted. You got to be nervous. You got to be oh my God, you can't sleep the night before. You're I hope this works. Tell me that.
Dude, take the words out of my mouth, man. I had every doubt and worry in the books. I mean, because when we had this idea, I committed to it. I was like, I'm all in. This is happening. And my career as like a credible figure in the basketball space is going to be dependent on if I can pull this off or not. There wasn't going to be a if, it had to be a when. And I start pitching these guys and these agents to send their players. And they're like, okay, well, this could be good. Some of them. Most of them were like, this is never going to work. If it could have been done, it would have already been done. They're slamming their phones down. Like no one's like, it was so tough. But then the agent started to have some interest and they were like, well, what teams are going to be there? Because they're not going to pay money if the teams aren't going to show up. Mm-hmm. And then I'm reaching out to teams. And again, I don't have a network. Like I haven't been in the business for 25 years. I'm not even 25 years old at this point. I'm just a dude trying to make something happen. So I can't call up an executive and say, hey, I got this event. You guys need to send someone out there. I don't have those relationships. I didn't have that. So I had to build all those. So as I'm building, I'm asking the teams, hey, you guys interested in coming? This is what we got going on. They're like, well, what players are going to be there? So now I got teams saying what players, and I'm like, I don't know yet. And I got agents saying, well, what teams are going to be there? And I'm like, I don't know yet. So I had to get really creative on how to bring people in. I had to get buy-in. I had to figure out how do I position this messaging to each party so that I can convince them and get them to see the value in it without lying to them and just giving them false hope. And so I learned so much about like how to position it and communicate the messaging. And then we get ready for the official event. Okay. And as we're getting ready for the event, I get a guy the last day, we fill up our spots and the last day someone cancels. And I'm like, no way. Because we have a limit of 24 players. 24 is an even number of guys, like 4 groups of 6. Now we got a guy that cancels. And then the day as we're doing that, we hear that we get a call the night before. Hey, one of our guys just graduated from college. Do you have a spot? And I was like, we do have a spot. And he's like, all right, he's going to get in a car. He's going to drive overnight. And it's got a 9-hour drive. He's going to drive overnight. He'll be there in the morning. Like just when he gets there, take care of him. However we got to do it. And I was like, done. Like we'll make it happen. We'll figure it out. And so we ended up having what ended up being still 23 guys in that first year. It ended up going off without a hitch. We had over half the NBA in attendance, and we proved that the concept worked. And then moving forward, we've advanced it. We've brought in partners. We've made it better. We found ways to make it more valuable for everybody. But man, that first year, it was so much of like, is this going to happen? Can I pull this off? Mm-hmm. What are the results going to be? Because we can always think it's going to be great, but until we actually do it, sure, we had to wait till it all happened. So it was a whirlwind, man, but it was so fun. It was so fun because you just knew that you were doing something that was for the right reasons.
Yeah. Did you have to like stop and pinch yourself being like, I cannot believe that I'm holding like, I want to be an agent, but I'm holding a combine right now.
Up until the event, there was none of that. There was not enough appreciation. I'll be the first to admit there was no appreciation because I was so gung-ho and like, I need to just make this thing happen. And once we had the event, when it started to happen, I'm sitting there and I'm like, holy shit. Like we did this. Like we made this possible. These players, we're going to play a small part in their journey of hopefully playing in the NBA. And after that first year, one of the guys who came to our event, he ended up winning the G League Rookie of the Year that year. And there were guys that came to our event that were so good. But the reason they had fallen was because teams didn't like the way they carried themselves or their ego or the way they looked on TV or they had heard rumors, right? And they came to our event, they were interviewed by the teams and teams changed their opinions about them, giving them new opportunities. So like after that, it was such a cool moment because I was like, we really changed these guys' careers. We played a small role in turning their dreams into a reality. And I think that's one of the greatest feelings we could give another human being. It's like, I've just made your dream. I've given you a little bit of guidance to make your dream your reality. And that's your new life. Like that's one of the greatest things we could ever do.
That's like an understatement, man. Like giving somebody their dream, giving a man his dream, like giving a second chance to go out there and prove himself and prove everyone wrong who talks shit on him and all these petty rumors and the teams and blah, blah, blah. Like anybody who's ever played professional sports or any type of college ball knows, it doesn't take much for the rumors to get out there about you being a certain particular way. Maybe it's, but you think about it. They're like 18, 19 years old out there balling, they might have a chip on their shoulder, man. Like when I was 18, you couldn't tell me shit, like Like I think what you're in the combine, like yours is a second chance. Like it's great because now you get to truly see, a second look about this man that's coming up, that's growing up, and his abilities. And I think there's a steal there. You know what I mean?
100%. And it was such a good lesson for me across so many fronts. How do I become a better communicator and networker, which is something that I've prided myself on from day one, right? That was a huge lesson learned, to see what differentiates people at the highest level from making it and not making it, right? From being able to see how do people evaluate other people from a vantage point of coming from the place where they hold all the leverage, right? All of these lessons have now translated into helping me grow my other businesses and helping me teach other people now how to grow their businesses. But it's so funny because it all started, with that one person to say yes to the event,
Sure.
that one team to commit. That one person can make a huge difference. And I've learned so much from it. And it's awesome.
Well, you say you learned so much from it. What's the number one lesson that you learned? Like from that first combine, getting all the teams, getting the players get there. What is that one lesson?
Okay, the one lesson I'm gonna give it like a two-parter here. Okay, I'm gonna try to get in two here, but we'll call it part A and part B. Part 1A is your relationships. Your relationships are going to dictate the success and the growth of what you're capable of creating and the buy-in you're going to get from other people. We know that the more people talk about you in a positive way, the more likely other people are going to believe you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Testimonials, referrals, social proof, things like that. But building relationships was the single most important thing that I really valued because I was on a time frame. And so if I couldn't connect the dots by the time frame, I wasn't going to have a successful event. But as people started to buy in, media members started to get hyped about it. They started introducing me to agents. The agents started to get me into the players. We started figuring out ways to connect the dots. And I learned that all you have to do is be able to figure out what someone really wants, build it with them, and deliver it, which goes into part B of this. Is when you build something, whether it's a business, taking an idea and turning it into implementing that idea into something real, is build it with your people. You have to know, you can have all the ideas you want in your mind, but if your people don't actually want the same things, if you build it, they will not come. Instead, build it as they come, right? Before they come. So as we were doing this, we asked all the scouts and executives, we're like, what would you like to see from our workouts? We built it with the relationship in mind so that we could over deliver. And a specific example about this was, one of the hesitations that teams had from coming was, oh, you're just going to do like basic workouts. Because for a lot of the big time players, their workouts are very, very independent. There's not a lot of competition because they don't want to get them injured or they don't want them to lower their stock. But the scouts told us, we want you guys to be competing, scrimmaging, doing whatever you can because we need to see how to separate these guys. We want them to be in game-like NBA situations, right? This is the level of evaluation. So we said, okay, so I brought in the right trainer who could lead the right workout. And therefore, NBA teams at the end of it were so impressed with that they were like, we're going to definitely be back next year. The word of mouth started to spread. And we added, over 2/3 of the NBA the following year. So it was those lessons, part A and part B of that, right? Is part A is the relationships and part B is diving deeper into what they really want to be able to create it. So that's probably like my biggest takeaway because that can be replicated in any industry, niche, business idea possible.
Creating those relationships are huge, I think. But the toughest part, dude, Jake, is breaking in the door, right? Getting past the gatekeepers. Like how many times I've tried to develop relationships with like key entrepreneurs and grade A, influencers. Like it's tough, man. Like building those relationships is hard. Like how did you get past the gatekeepers? Because I know you're talking to executives. They have administrative assistants who take their calls, take their emails.
Yeah.
How do you develop those relationships?
So for those relationships, and this is where research comes into play. I went to every single avenue that I could find to get the direct emails to each person, not just a general info at or front office at. I wanted to find individual people. I combined that research of finding personal emails with personal LinkedIn connections, Instagram follow, Twitter follows, and I combined multiple platforms. So that was one of the ways I did it. The second way is I started to really identify who were the people that planned team workouts.
Mhm.
Okay. Because it's not just one person that gets to choose if they're coming or not. There's someone that typically handles what workouts they go to, who they send, when they send them. And so I started to build relationships with those types of people, but really it started with the cold email. And I really had to focus on making it customizable enough to where they could see the legitimacy behind what I was doing, to add credibility, but also to show how valuable it's going to be right off the bat. And I started to explain all of those things in a very short and concise email that gathered interest. And then we jumped on the phone right after that to really explain what the concept was as we built it out.
Now that's interesting. Like, that is a process, my friend. Linking the two different platforms or three different platforms to try to get to the people that have the direct emails, and then sending an email. Like, did you use the same template? Did you try to personalize it? Like, what was your strategy when you send those cold emails? Because that's tough, man. Like, I read, what is it? A 4-Hour Work Week with like Tim Ferriss, and I think he's got what is it? The Third Door. Have you read Alex
Yeah,
Bernay?
Alex.
He has, some of the feedback in his book is phenomenal, about how to make it short and sweet, and basically just say, hey, look, I know you're busy. Just a 1 or 2 line sentence reply to my email would make me feel amazing, or whatever. I just need you to answer this question. Is that something that you did, or was it like, did you have a more direct strategy?
No, it was very direct and succinct. What I always like to do, and I call this the fun fact frenzy. Okay. And this is where you try to find one fun fact about the person before you reach out to them. That way it seems like it's really to that person. So I always like to find that. And then you do use, obviously, I'm on a deadline here, and I'm sending out a ton of these. There's 30 NBA teams. I got to reach out to every single team multiple times. And we're in a short time frame. We had less than 5 months to pull this whole thing off. And so, there's a standard template that we created. And then we added the customization to every single person to try to break through the noise and show that I was serious and that I was ready to do something that was going to change the game.
Awesome, man. Nah, it's tough, man. Just getting in the door, like your foot in the door, is the toughest part. And then now it's like, hey, now we're gonna read your email. We're gonna take it to the boss and see what he says. And then you get a call, maybe a follow up or something like that. And then now, hey, what do you got? What's your purpose? Like, why are you trying to do this? Now you got to sell it. And then they're like asking you what players they're going to be there, and you're like, I got a list. I don't want to tell you my list. I'm being strategic. And then you go back to the players and say, I got a team. I don't want to tell you, but I got a team. And it's like, like you said, you don't want to lie to them, but it's like you got to paint that picture of professionalism. You got to paint that picture of being legit. There's a fine line you got to dance. There's a fine freaking line you got to dance when you try to get people to come to your event. Like, how do you do that? You know what I mean? How do you do that without lying? How do you do that with being authentic to yourself, being authentic to your mission?
Well, for me personally, like the values that I have are to build everything that I do off integrity, and that I'm someone that has a lot of high ground, in the sense of I always want to take the road that produces the best results for everybody. I'm not going to try to snake you out of something just to get a sale. Like it serves me no good, because then I feel guilty and then I lose my own enjoyment. And I'm here to enjoy my life, period. And if you want to come on the ride with me, that's fantastic. There's plenty of seats on the bus. But what I'm trying to do this is in this beginning part, especially with the differences between the agents, the players, on one side, and then the teams, is I had to, say, hey, these people are interested. I had to use the word choice of these people are interested. They've expressed interest in it. If your guy commits, they're probably going to commit. These guys are interested. They're likely to come. And then I started breaking down interested, likely to come, committed. And I started to use different language based off of my certainty of what I believed was going to happen. Now, the most beautiful thing about this was that allowed me to follow up on a weekly basis for several months with multiple NBA teams. And so the system of following up was more important, or just as important, what I was actually telling them. Because if I didn't update them, they were out. I would lose them. Right? So I had to do that, and I had to stay on top of it, because I needed teams to start saying yes, 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 So I could come back to the agents and be like, look, they're in. You just got to send your guy. I got you an interview with them already too.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you have to start balancing that. So the combination of being honest and authentic based off what my values were, and not trying to just lie to get people to come, but really doing it like in what I thought was the right way,
Sure.
as well as combining that with like an intense follow-up process. That was the system that just got us to where we were when we launched it year one.
You say intense, like what is that? Like maybe once a day, like follow up, maybe twice, maybe once every other day. Like what did that look like? The follow up.
So
I know you got to stay on them, right?
Yeah. So there was probably 400 plus agents on our list. And there were probably over 100 MBA personnel that we were communicating with. We had, the way I did it in like, without going into like every single specific, right, is I had a color coding based off of different categories of, did they open the email? Did they respond to the email? What would their response were? And then I had a certain follow-up email that I would send on a weekly basis, depending on my updates. And then once they confirmed, I would send them something else. Now, this wasn't automated by any means. This was me doing this all the time. And so I had to be very organized because it was going to be impossible to keep track of all the agents I was selling on why they should come and at what point was I at, call 3, call 2, call 1, or with the teams, what email did they had committed yet? Were they still on the fence? Why were they on the fence? Like what would it take to get them there? Who do they need to see? Who do they want to see? And I tried to just keep asking questions as well as giving information that would keep the conversations moving. And so I had communication with these two parties, every single week. I was constantly doing it. I mean, I was on the phone from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. all the time because different time zones and really trying to build this out. Now our system's much more dialed in. But when I was just beginning, I was just trying to stay afloat and make it all happen. And that was challenging, but I know that was a big reason why it worked out.
Do you have any of that advice in your books? Like, do you have any of the systems that you use for yourself? Like, I feel like that's like a gem right there, man. Like for people that are out, even in sales, it doesn't have to be with like a not college combine, but a professional combine. It could be like direct sales. I mean, that method, that system that you have in place is pretty legit.
So in my book, Elevate Your Network, there are 25, I call them Kelf keys. Last name's Kelfer, so they're Kelf keys. And all 25 of those are specific strategies that you can use, right? So talking about the difference between a we versus me mentality, talking about you never know who you're talking to until you know, how to ask the right questions, how to get drinks the right way. All these different things are in there. Following up is a must, and how to say thank you, right? So a lot of these are very basic level in there that will get you going and advance wherever you're at in your networking journey. And then we have our programs, right, that dive deeper into the specific strategies with the different templates and things like that, where you can get access to now how I track and follow up and how I mark things. We have access to all of that in our programs.
Nice, man. I like that. So is your dream of being a sports agent like still out there, or is it like you pretty set on being a speaker and coach and all that?
I won't say it's gone forever, but it's definitely not a priority in my life right now.
Why is that? Like, why'd that change?
I think it was, one of the things that might have came up was when I was building the combine, I was constantly calling all these agents, and I realized that a lot of these agents don't want to be collaborative. They're very cutthroat, and there's nothing wrong with that, because that's the way the business is. But the way I wanted to live my life and the way I wanted to create my business wasn't going to be being an agent the way I saw a lot of these agents doing it. Now, I don't want it to say that there are no good agents out there and that none, don't have great ethics. But there were a lot that it didn't bring me the same joy as I thought it was going to bring just by negotiating and dealing with them. They were always trying to cut the corner. They were always trying to bully. They were always trying to do these things. I was like, that's not going to get us anywhere. The agents that were great are agents that I'm still friends with and take care of the best that I can, always. And that's just human nature. And so I've realized that the combine, I couldn't also be an agent with the combine. I was never going to have that conflict of interest where I worked with an agency and had my own combine, because then, people would talk and that wouldn't serve the players, which is why I wanted to be an agent in the first place, to serve the players. But our event allows me to serve 24 guys every single year, which is way more than I would have on my agent roster anyways. So that's really cool. That's one of the reasons. And the other reason is, as I've spoken more and more and more, like, it lights me up to be able to help other people achieve their dreams. Like it fires me up when I speak to a business and then the next month they, break their sales record, or, a year later, someone says, I still remember doing an exercise in your program and it's changed my life. Like those to me are those transformative moments that will always be a memory for them and for me. And that's really cool. So right now, not going to be a sports agent. In the future, who knows? Maybe it'll come back around and I'll do it my way at a later time. But for now, being a coach to entrepreneurs and coaches, that's where I'm thriving and loving it right now.
What's harder, planning and combine and the processes and the systems behind that, or planning to help someone, mentor someone, coach somebody in their business?
If you know who you're talking to when you're trying to start your business, you're golden. If not, that's much harder. Okay. Because when I think about my speaking business, I'll use an example. With the combine, it was very specific. There was a certain number of players that we could go after, that there was only a certain number that qualified. There are only 30 teams that we could bring in from the NBA. And there are only X amount of agents registered with the NBPA, right? It's a very niche, very, very niche group. Now, when I was speaking, when I first started, I thought I could speak to everybody. I thought I could speak on all different types of topics, career development, networking, motivation, all leadership, all this stuff. But it was only until I started narrowing it down and said, okay, I'm going to make this year, my big focus is going to be on high school and college leadership groups and student organizations. The minute I switched that, it became easy because I took out all the distractions and ideas and focused just on one group. Figured out where they live, where they spend their time, what platforms they're on, who hires, who are the collaborators, who are the other speakers that I could connect with. Originally, you think those are your competitors, but they're actually your biggest collaborators, right? The people that could give you other gigs. So what's harder? Logistics of an event are a beast. Building another business, they're both hard. But with the right systems, it becomes simple. Right? And simple doesn't necessarily mean easy. Simple means possible to follow the process. And that's the biggest change that I've seen in my growth is I make things very simple. I break it down into easy action steps that make it possible to do. And then you go from there and you just start to grow and scale upon that. Sure.
No, that's it's always been interesting to me, like the speaking gig. Like it's so volatile. You either got it or you don't. It's just like sports. Either you got it or you don't. Like you have that energy, you have that vibe, you have this persona, you have this, I could connect with that. Like I watched film on you and you do a very good job with your hand gestures, the way that you present yourself, the body language, body motion, stage presence, you have all of that. Some people don't. Number one fear, public speaking, right? Because you just feel like everyone's looking at you. You start, screwing up in your message. You start losing your place in your speech. Like, what did it come easy for you? Like, was it something that you could, go up on stage and, you talked about game time for this interview. Like, is it, and in the video that I watched, you say every speech is like game time for you. It's game day, right? I know when I played sports, game day, like butterflies, baby, it was butterflies until the first hit. And then after the first hit, it's another day. Is that the same for you? Yeah, in a way. I first sentence. We gotta make we gotta make our lives fun. Okay. We gotta make our careers fun and we gotta enjoy ourselves. So for me, when I'm getting ready to speak, it is like game day. The night before I go through, a routine. I check the venue. When I used to play baseball, I would always check the outfield. I was a center fielder. I would check the outfield and I see which way the grass is rolling. How thick is the grass? What are the dimensions of the field? I wanted to get everything possible so that I could know my angles and know which way to go. When I do my speaking gigs, I look at the stage. How much space do I have to walk? Are there any obstacles in the barrier? What type of microphone do they have for me? What kind of chairs is the audience sitting in? Is it easy for them to move? Is it easy for them to get up? Can they walk in between the rows or do they have to go outside the rows? How many people? Is it 1,000? Is it 100? Is it 40? Different things require different types of positioning, different types of verbalization, different types of body language and gestures. But when I get introduced for that, when I get out there and I always have people introduce me like it's a starting lineup.
just to make it fun, right? And then I have the music come on and it just becomes a party. And I come out there, and as soon as that happens, everything just falls into place. Because I've mentally prepared myself. I've visualized what I want the audience to feel, what I want them to gain from this. I visualized what I'm seeing them doing. I'm visualizing me crushing it, the words flowing out of my mouth, the audience laughing, smiling, engaging with each other, the audience standing up and clapping, the audience rushing the back of the room. I visualized it all. Now I just got to show up and do it. I've taken out all of the rest of it. And now I just need to be fully present on speaking. And it's hard. I wasn't that good when I started, but I continue to work, and I've continued to learn and ask good questions and find people who are better and figure out, what are they doing? How do they record themselves? How do they get introduced? What do they do on stage? How do they hold their mic? Mm-hmm. And I've continued to work on that to improve my base skills, which were already pretty good, but I've continued to improve that into becoming as good as I possibly can be with the knowledge that I currently have. Like, I could always be better. But I really try to focus on that.
We all can be better. We all can get better. We all can push that envelope a little bit harder. I mean, I didn't realize that speakers watch film on themselves. Like, I didn't know that for a while. Like, and then when, like, what was it? Alan Stein, he came on and we had a deep conversation, and, you know, I know Alan personally, and, you know, he watches film, and it's gotta be hard, you know, like watching yourself. Like, sometimes I can't listen to myself. Like, it's tough. And to go through that. Do you have a coach or anything like that? Like a speaking coach?
I don't have a speaking coach at the moment per se. Most of the colleagues that have been in the industry for a while, I kind of look to them as mentors. But I don't have an actual speaking coach at the moment.
But you watch film on yourself, right?
Oh yeah. I watch film on myself. I've had other people watch my film. So in a way, like, that's having like one-off coaches in a way.
How tough is that? Yeah. How tough is that to watch? I mean, not saying that you're good, but I mean, like, there's always somebody there critiquing you. I mean, football's different though. Football, like, I was a football player, baseball player. We watch film. And it's like, I know parts of the game where I was good. You know, I knew that, oh man, I missed that block. Shit. Now the entire team's going to see it. And I'm like, you know, like hiding in the corner, like, you know, when I know third quarter, this 10th play is coming on, I'm like, shit, here we go. And as soon as it comes up, you know, here I am getting my ass chewed out. Got to be the same feeling.
Well, so here's one big difference, right? Is in football, you know, when you messed up, it's so obvious when you missed the tackle, right? As a speaker, your audience has no idea what's supposed to happen. The only person that knows what you're going to say is you. So when I watch film on myself, I may have a different interpretation because I was like, oh man, I went on a total tangent on that story, and I can't believe I said that. Or that wasn't part of what I was going to say today. Or I totally forgot this entire 3-minute story that I needed to tell. Nobody else would ever know that, right? Could it have added to it? Potentially, but I critique myself on those things, but no one else will be able to say, oh, you missed that block. Oh, you missed that story, right? And that's one of the things that I always tell speakers, people that want to start speaking, is nobody knows what you're going to say. So even if you mess up, nobody knows except for you. And as long as you don't completely like crap yourself in that moment, you're totally good to go. Like, the party still rolls, the show goes on. Yeah. And so, you know, when I watch film myself, I'm very harsh, because the other thing too, when you watch film on speakers, is in person, the speaker's energy is unbelievable. You're in the moment, you're there. When you watch it back, the energy is never the same. And this is something that we tell all types of people, is especially with the world being a virtual stage now, like, we're on a virtual stage right now. This is a performance. We're showing up for each other and for the audience and for everybody, right? And what we notice is in person, if you show up at a 10 with your energy is a 10. If that energy is shown on a recording, that energy that was a 10 in person might feel like a 7 when you're watching it back. Because I've watched speeches of myself that I'm like, I dominated that in person. I watch it back and I'm like, dude, this is kind of slow. Like, this isn't the energy that I thought I brought. But it's because you're not in there. You don't get the bouncing of the sounds. You don't get the ambiance. And so when you do podcasts, right? When you do different types of you speak in other people's groups, you got to show up 3 levels higher, because the energy will come through. And those people that have the super high energy, you feel it, right? You totally can feel the difference, and it makes it a little bit different. And then you can start to leverage it, because most of our communication is not done through the words that we're saying. It's done through the tone of our voice and our body language. And that's such a key component to being able to be a great speaker and a great storyteller, is when you can combine those elements to bring out the best in other people and the emotions of other people.
I forget the ratio, but I think it's like 20% of the entire communication is just verbal, right? Everything else is nonverbal. The energy, the movement, the eye contact, everything. Just like there's just nonverbal cues that just drive the message home. How has the online platform changed your game? Like, I mean, obviously you have to adapt to it, but like, and then like you said, you're on a platform and you just have less tools to work with. Like, how have you adjusted your game?
Lots of different ways, man. I'll tell you, beginning of coronavirus, it was a tough realization because every single gig got canceled. I mean, everything went dark. And that was interesting because we also needed to figure out, okay, what are the expectations now going to be? And a lot of people started saying, well, can you just do it for free? You don't have to travel anymore. And it's like, well, you don't necessarily just pay us as speakers for our travel. You pay us for our time. You pay us for our knowledge. You pay us for the results we can get you guys. And it's evolved a lot. It's made podcasts more important and more popular. It's made selling in webinars a lot more popular. So I've adapted to it and really fine-tuning my stories. I've really focused on trying to make sure that I have a good combination of education and entertainment and energy, right? Combining all of that into it. But overall, for me, it's been a great ride. It's gone from ups and downs, but I've learned how to adjust, and it's made me a better presenter, because now to keep someone, especially with these high school kids that I talk to keep a high school kid attention on Zoom is one of the hardest things you can ever do, because they have their phones, they're in their rooms, and now they have a guest speaker, like how are you going to get them? And so I've leveraged how to engage with people, how to get people to start nodding their heads and feeling it with me so that they come on the journey with me rather than just pull out their phone every 5 minutes. And that's been something super powerful. And I'd recommend, to anyone that is trying to do more speaking or not, is asking more questions throughout your presentation. Give people the acknowledgement that you value their time just as much as you expect them to value your message.
Yeah, that's the one thing. Like, I feel like I've been asked to come do some speaking gigs. I love the art of conversation. Like, I went to my brother-in-law's event. It's called Complicated Conversations, and Stephen Kotler came, and his name, Richard Saul Werman, who is the original founder of TED, and they set up 2 chairs. It was pre-COVID, obviously, and they just had a conversation. And to me, don't get me wrong, like, I love speaking, I love your vibe, I love that, all of that. But if you guys can implement some type of way of having like a regular conversation with somebody, that pulls me in more than anything. Even like, the way that the TED Talks were supposed to be, like originally, it was just like 2 people having a conversation. Now it's a little bit more theatrical and the red dot and blah, blah, blah. But like the conversation, like the art of that, like just you and I just, bullshitting on the stage, just having a conversation about, growth, self-development, what inspires us. Like, oh my, they could be talk. I mean, they just literally just had a conversation about nothing. It was like Seinfeld, Seinfeld was great, right? Like, 'cause it was about nothing, but it was like the authentic, it's just authentic. And I just feel like a lot of conversations, we're missing that in today's world, right? With all the Zooms, you don't feel that connection. You're not having, it's hard to have a conversation on Zoom. Like, you know what I mean? Cause like in person, you can kind of elaborate on what the person's saying, or you can go off, a sentence. Now it's kind of like a lag. Sometimes you phase in and out. Like, it's just different, man. Like, it's got to be tough for you as a speaker, like on the Zoom platform. You can't see everybody. You don't get that vibe. You don't, what are you gonna put, like smoke machines in your room and like have the music blaring and like come in like introducing yourself, like it's got to be tough.
I do all of those things, Trey. I do all of those things. I got the smoke machines. I got the disco ball. I got, yeah. No, man, look, it is hard. And I don't think anything will ever replace in person, but that's not in my control. What is in my control is how I show up, what stories I can tell, how I can tell the best possible version of that story, and how I can make sure that I hit the people where they're at, not where I want them to be. And I think when I've worked with different businesses on different speaking gigs, and I'm talking with 300 people on Zoom and I can't see any of them except like the 5 mini people in my corner. There's a different art, because you have to speak as if you're speaking to everybody, but you can't see anybody. And one of the best parts about speaking, some of the best speakers feed off your audience. And, even the conversation you're talking about with just two people in person, the ambiance that's in that room is magical, because you're getting just the real vibes in the moment. You're getting the energy. You're experiencing it in the moment. But when you're speaking on Zoom to 300 people and they can see you, but you can't see any of them.
Yeah.
You have to be so dialed in and find ways to keep attracting them and bringing them in and keeping them involved through other methods, because you can't see them if they're on their phone or not, or what they're doing. You don't know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely been hard, man. It's been hard, but I think that I'm a better speaker because of it.
Yeah, man. Hell yeah, dude.
So
I think Peter Diamandis, like I read his book, The Future is Faster Than You Think. And what really like fired me up was like his discussion about like avatars and AI, like the future of speaking. Like it could possibly be like you're sitting in your home like you are right now with like a headset on. And with VR, like you could be in Italy, right? Like talking to an entire, an auditorium full of people, like 500 people, just, with a robot up there moving with your movements in your house. How cool would that be? Even though, you still couldn't be there, but but still how awesome that would be to be able to present something like not being there, but being there.
It would be pretty cool. I think of like Coachella, they have the pop-ups. That would be, that's so cool. And it'll be interesting to see how everything plays out. Yeah. I think the unknown is something that as an entrepreneur or as a speaker can sometimes be one of the most like challenging things to navigate. But I've come to really just put my trust in focusing on being the best that I can be with what I got at the moment, and just controlling what I can control.
Best you want to be. Who is the best in the game as far as speaking in your mind? Like who do you who's your role model as far as speaking? And who do you try to emulate? I have a lot of different
role models, man. And you look at Joe Rogan as a podcast host. He's a great speaker, right? He's a great speaker. There are youth speakers that I really like for certain reasons. There are business speakers that I like. One of my favorite speakers that I heard in a long time, her name's Jamie Kern-Lima. And she told an unbelievable story. Anthony Trucks is another guy who's told an unbelievable story on stage. And I look at them and I say, why were their stories so great? And it's because they told the whole truth. They told the whole story. They were willing to share the things that sucked, which is a lot of times what we think we can't do as the expert, right? Is we think we have to be all buttoned up, that we can't make a mistake. We can't say, we can't say, something that we messed up on, right? I love that. I love when people are their authentic self. And if you have a huge personality, show off that personality. And if you don't have a huge personality, own that style that you have and be the best at delivering your message through that style. Because that's how we attract the people that we want in our life anyways. I don't want to be someone who tries to please everybody else, and then I get all these clients or I get all these fans and I don't even like them. And I have to pretend to be somebody else. I'd rather get less people that absolutely love what I do and believe in me and like my style and my energy and my quirkiness and my sports metaphors and all these things. I'd much rather have those types of people, because that's what makes it fun. So when I think of all like the speakers that I really like, it's people that dedicate to their craft. I love people that tell unbelievable stories. And I love people that really can genuinely bring out the best in other people.
Yeah. There's a mystical, I guess, book called the Bhagavad Gita. And my favorite line in that book is, it's better to perform one's own duties imperfectly than to master the duties of another. You know what I mean? Like, be yourself. And a lot of the social media platforms that we use, like a lot of people try to, I mean, we got mirror imaging going on in our brains. Neuroscience, I mean, we evolved, surviving because of the mirror images. We copy everyone else because that's what the herd does. We want to be safe. We don't want to die off. We want to be a part of the society that says, hey, you got to be like this to be accepted. Now, when it comes to being creative, when it comes to being different, as far as being like what you're talking about, it's important to own your oneness, your difference maker, the thing that makes you different from the herd. And it could be your energy, it could be the way you speak, it could be the way that you tell stories, but it's up to you to find that, right? Like it's up to you. Like Joe Rogan's probably, I think he's everybody's freaking, like, Kobe, you know what I mean? Like he's everybody's, image of what a perfect speaker is, because he can go out there and just be relaxed and have a conversation. He once said that, conversations like breathing air, you'll never run out of words. You keep talking. It doesn't matter. He messes up all the time, but everybody's like, oh, that's Joe Rogan. He's the best. I think not being afraid to be you is probably the best thing that you can do, and practice that every day. Like find what it is, go inside, take some time to meditate, take some time to really reflect about who you are and what makes you you, and what your individual brain thinks, not what anybody else tells you, but what your individually circuited brain thinks, and go out there and be that 100%, like regardless, even if no one likes it, you're still being you, you're still being your oneness. And to me, that's the way of life. I'd rather be myself and have one fan who's my mom, then go out there and try to be a Joe Rogan, because it's not who I am. It's not my essence. It's somebody else's dream, not mine.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's great. I mean, it's great advice of what you're saying to be who we are, right? It's great to learn from other people. It's not great to copy other people.
Sure.
And that's the important thing, is sometimes we can get caught up in trying to be exactly like them. But there's only one of them. And there's only one of you. And if you can take the best pieces from Joe Rogan, Tony Robbins, all the people that you follow, whoever you follow, you can incorporate certain styles into your style, but you have to make it your own. And that's part of the evolutionary phase.
That's
but
the hard part.
Here's the reason why it's so hard, though, is because at the root of being ourselves means we have to be open to being rejected. We have to be open to allowing someone to criticize us for who we are. And that's the hardest feedback to take, because it doesn't feel good. We are opening ourselves up and saying who we are, and someone is saying, you're not good enough. I don't like what you have to say. I don't want your podcast. I don't want your book. I don't want to hear you talk. That's tough to hear.
Yeah.
And
why do you think so many
sometimes we get
people write the
nervous
same way, right? Like, why do people always just fill things up with quotes? Because a certain person did it. Like why are you doing it like that? Oh, they start criticizing you. You're like, what are you doing? Well, Joe Rogan does that. I'm doing the same thing he does. Why are you doing that? Oh, Tim Ferriss does that. It's easy to write that off and say, oh, well, that's what he does.
Yeah.
It's got to be good. No, you got to do you, and you got to accept the criticism. Not everyone's going to like what you do. But it's what you continually do to evolve, right? Like you might start out like you said, not copying, but doing some similar things that other people do and finding your way. And then eventually you'll find the way that works best for you and that is true to you. And people will start giving you feedback. That's the only way you grow, is through feedback. But people might not like it, but that's fine. Like it's not for everybody. Like you said, like the more that you can get into a niche, the better. Like it's not for everyone. It's for a certain group of people. And at the end of the day, you got to be happy with yourself and what you're doing in your message and whatever that looks like for you. So I think you're following that. I think you're definitely like, I look at your website. It's a great website. I look at your video, your film. You're definitely fired up. You got people dancing, swaying. You got, you got the message going out there to be a better you. I think your work is important because it helps the younger kids, especially the basketball players and athletes, get the most out of these vulnerable years. Like people need more mentors like you, and especially speaking to the youth of today. I think it's important because a lot of people look towards social media and Instagram, famous individuals, and they need more genuine people like yourself with experience and business and on the business side of things, and coming in and giving them inspiration to do greater and bigger things.
Thanks, man. Appreciate all that.
Yeah, dude. Speaking of which, how can people get in touch with you? How can they find out more about you and your speaking profile, and how to reserve you for a speaker?
Yeah, the best ways to do that are Instagram at Jake Kelfer, just my first and last name, or my website, jakekelfer.com. Those are the best places. And for anyone that's listening, if you want to dive deeper into the networking, you can grab a free copy of my book, Elevate Your Network, in my Instagram profile. The link there will direct you to it. Free
copy. Get your hands on that. Jake, last question, kind of a big deal. What do you want your legacy to be?
I think about this a lot of for a lot of time, all the time, man. What do I want my legacy to be? I want it to be somebody who chose to design the life around the people that I love, somebody that showed up and made the world a better place, and to be somebody that elevated people to live their highest self.
Elevated people to live their highest self. Can't sum it up better than that. Jake, thank you so much for joining the show, man. This has been amazing.
Yeah, Trey, I appreciate you, man.
I want to say thank you to Jake for joining the show. Thank you guys for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This has been amazing. Don't forget to go to TreyDowns.com. Follow me on Instagram at TDowns80. Let me know what you are doing, what you're up to. I love hearing about your journeys and how you guys are growing and how you guys are getting through 2021. So let me know. Love hearing it. And I hope you guys have an amazing weekend. I hope that you guys are doing well. So I will talk to you guys later.